In our last session, we read a letter from a woman who complained that her husband was verbally abusive. I told her the story of the man who complained about driving into the same pothole every day and suggested that yelling back at her husband was similarly productive, even though her husband's behavior was certainly wrong. Now, back to the writer of the letter. So the real issue here is not whether your husband is wrong. We all understand that. It's about real love. And I understand that it can be quite difficult to be loving to someone when they're yelling at you that you can't cook or drive or walk straight or anything else. Comments like that don't bring out that love in you, do they? On the other hand, those are exactly the moments when he needs love the most. It's easy to love him when he's being nice. So what? You grow the most, you learn the most, and your marriage benefits the most when you love him while he's being difficult. So, how in the world can you love him when he says some unkind thing? Easy. You just need to understand that loving can have many faces, that loving is much more than hugs and kisses. So let's look at an example of what loving could look like when your husband is behaving like a 4-year-old, as he often does. And what I just said is a huge example of loving. Simply understanding him is loving. Right now, when he attacks you, you see him as an unkind, angry monster whose intent is to hurt you. Wrong. He's just empty and afraid. And he uses his anger and criticism to feel less empty and afraid. When he's attacking you, when he's making you smaller, he feels a little more in control. He feels a little stronger and better by comparison. He feels a little more power in his life, and that makes him feel a little better about himself. Now, it's pathetic, sure, but it feels better than the nothing he otherwise has. When you understand that, you won't feel antagonistic toward him. You won't bristle toward him when he's nasty toward you. You won't defend yourself. You won't shoot back at him. And that alone will make a huge difference. You'll see him as I just referred to him, as a 4-year-old. And with that tiny bit of compassion, you'll begin to turn it all around. It's huge. And he'll feel it. Another thing you can do is listen to him. For example, when he says something like, "This fish is overcooked. Can't you cook anything right?" I'm guessing you become a bit defensive. Almost everybody would. Instead, listen to what he's saying. He's completely empty. And when anything goes wrong in his life, it's more than he can stand. Again, he's like a 4-year-old. And if a 4-year-old can't have his ice cream cone right now, what happens? He has a tantrum, right? Same with your husband. When you understand that, you'll respond differently and say something like this. "Let me look at that fish." "Well, you're right. It is overcooked around the edges." Even if it's only slightly overcooked, ignore that fact. Remember, he's looking for something to be snotty about. Your goal here isn't to argue or be right, it's to listen. Then you continue and you say, "I'll pay more attention to that next time." Then you touch him on the shoulder gently, affectionately, and you say, "Would you like me to fix something else? Or do you want to go out for something?" I promise you, if you mean this when you say it, he'll be stunned that you're genuinely listening to him. Why? Because it shows that you care about him. This is what real love looks like. In our next session, we'll discuss some other things that you can do when he behaves like this.